Hey everybody, and thanks for coming in for another episode of the Real Estate Minute Show. Jay Lieberman from Lieberman Realty Group. I never say that. I wanted to share a story about a phone call I had to illustrate interest rates and where we are today. I don't get shocked easily. I hear a lot of things in my real estate practice, my law practice. You can imagine the things, and having two girls, two daughters, I hear everything. Okay, things I don't want to hear, and things I do. But I was pretty shocked. I keep up to date on obviously my business, so I understand where interest rates are, what the reason for it is, the inflation, going into recession, the good things about that, all that stuff. I kind of keep a watch on what's going on in the market. But I was really shocked on this particular market. So I was on the phone with a client on Monday, and he's a friend of mine, so he said it's okay to share this. I'm not going to give names or anything, but we're on the phone with his bank because we're looking at buying a property in California for him. And so we're talking about the first mortgage, and he wanted me on the line because he was shocked and wanted to see if the bank was just totally like loan sharking him. So the first mortgage, he was getting quoted about 6.25% to 6.5%. And I said, that's where rates are right now. And it's a multi-million-dollar loan, but that's where rates are right now for a loan like that. They're like that for a regular 30-year loan. Those are the quotes. And we all kind of hear it around the news, so there's no big shock there. What he was shocked with is he was thinking about borrowing a second, or they call it a HELOC. It's a home equity line of credit. HELOC is usually about a 10-year term or so. It's usually interest only, meaning you're not paying principal unless you want to. And you could borrow the money, you pay it back, borrow the money, pay it back. It's a line of credit. Back in the early 2000s, we'd borrow HELOCs like no problem. You wanted to go out to dinner? HELOC, 24 hours. It was no issue. Obviously, things are a little different now. So I said, I don't really know what the HELOC rates are right now because I haven't seen a HELOC in a while. And I was floored. So she says, well, we have a teaser rate on the HELOC right now, 5.49%. And I said, not so bad. It's about almost a point less than what the first is, kind of what I expected. And then I said, okay, what happens after 6 months? She's like, well, and then she goes through rates. Let me see. It's based on prime rate, which I'll get into in a sec. And so it'd be, expect about 10.5% after the first 6 months. So I'm like, oh my God, that's like, I don't know if you know what hard money is. Hard money is short-term money, short-term lenders, usually 6 to 12 months that you go to borrow money really fast. If you have to close on a deal, or you're an investor or a flipper, or you have credit issues or don't want people getting into your financials too deep, you go to a hard money lender. They charge anywhere, we're charging, rates are up, between 9, 12, 14% more or less. That's legal. And there is a legal limit called usury. That's a legal limit for them to charge, but it's a very high interest rate, but they close fast. They give you the money that you need fast. The HELOCs from regular commercial banks now are like hard money loans. And I was floored. And here's what this means though to me. Forget about the HELOC, forget about my buddy, and even forget about the rate for a second. HELOCs are based on, not like first mortgages are based on a long-term bond, which is what sets the interest rate on that. So because they're 30-year loans, they're based on that kind of longer term, maybe 30-year bond or something. So a little bit more stable, even though they've been erratic lately. HELOCs are, and they're fixed rates typically, right? HELOCs are based on short-term rates, typically prime. And prime is kind of like the Fed fund rate, even though it's different. They kind of tie together way more than the first mortgage rates. And I talk about the Fed fund rate a few months ago. You can go back in the library and check that out. But prime rate varies. And these HELOCs are interest only usually, and they're short-term rates, and they fluctuate a lot. So HELOCs a lot of times are used by people that own the house already for like debt consolidation or home improvements and things like that. They don't want you buying like boats with it, even though people do. So let's say I want to put in I'm getting a lot of family pressure and I want to put in a swimming pool. So it's going to be $100,000. I go into my lender, I get a HELOC for $100,000. If it's at 10.5%, two things. One is I probably won't qualify for that HELOC anymore because it's twice what it used to be. And the second is I don't want to borrow that money at 10%. I might as well put it on my credit card and try to cut a better deal with my credit card company, even though those rates are incredibly high. You know what I'm saying? So you're getting like it's so far off the mark now that people aren't going to want to take HELOCs. I'm assuming that those HELOCs are way down in applications. And what does that mean? Here's a bigger thing in the economy, and this is what's most important, is that you could see the writing on the wall, and this is what was important on this phone call, is that if people aren't borrowing these HELOCs, they're not putting money into the economy because they're not putting swimming pools in. They're not improving their houses. And if they're not improving their houses and putting swimming pools in, the guys that do the improvements and do the swimming pools and all that kind of stuff are not doing as much work. And if they're not doing as much work, what happens? They have to lay people off. And if they leave, and they may even have to close down for a while. If they lay people off, those people now maybe are on either public assistance or they go get another job. But the same thing's happening down the street with the other guy. This is what causes a recession. There's going to be maybe a recession and wage growth will start to slow down a little bit and things will happen and there'll be a slow retraction. And that's what helps inflation, offset inflation. It's a bigger conversation, but it was just, that's the key point that I heard on that phone call about this interest rate. We are so high now that people are not going to participate in the economy to the degree they have before because it's way too expensive to do so. A little bit of an interesting show, I know. It's house but economy mixed together. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll get through this. It's natural. It's human cycles, if you look at history, and everyone's going to come out great. Everybody always does at the end. All right. Wish you a great week, and we will see you soon. Thanks for tuning into the show.